This is a special podcast presentation from 700WLW.com. This is Doc Thompson On Demand.
So Jesse Jackson came to town and cost you and I a whole bunch of money. Well, because a bunch of Cincinnati occupiers, they got arrested last night after he spoke, and he's going to speak at noon again today at Pyatt Park. We'd already spent the money, told the occupiers to go away. We are back to normal, or at least some sense of normalcy here in the tri-state. Jesse Jackson comes to town, riles everybody all up. It costs us a bunch of money. What happens if it turns even bigger? What if somebody had gotten hurt last night? Isn't there some responsibility there? Garrett and Anderson, you're on 700 WLW. Okay, we'll get to Joe Cleves. You're on 700 WLW.
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to talk about the college and student loans and comment a little bit about that last caller. My whole life, I guess the whole K through 12 education was basically being told, go to college, and when you get to high school, you take classes that are called college prep. And so basically, there's this whole system in place where it's directed towards going to college. Now, I understand that, loans can't be completely forgiven, and that's an obligation. But I think we're kind of blaming the victims here rather than looking at the real system. If there was a career field that you knew was going to make money, hey, I think everybody would be in it. But I think that changes over time, and just to say there's no value in other fields besides something that's guaranteed to make money. I don't think anything's guaranteed to make money.
I'll tell you what, Joe, I don't know, it was probably 15 years or so ago that I first started talking about how outrageous it is now that we have told everybody they have to go to college. And because of that, college, unlike the past when people only had to have high school, educations, costs a whole lot of money. And that certainly has changed. I started talking about that 15 years ago. You're right. That's horrible.
Yeah.
But it is not to say then you should just go ahead and forgive all student loans or make college free or anything. You've got to look at some of the other angles, like those colleges who continue to build up these huge endowments, all the while telling us how important education is. If it was that important, wouldn't they open up their doors, build more facilities with those endowments and make it cheaper? Instead, you've got these people who run those universities and colleges, sometimes making millions of dollars. But you don't hear people talking about them. They like them because they are the educated leftists out there. So they're not going to challenge them, just the CEO.
Be the 20th nationwide caller now to 1-877-565-WINS to score $1,000 in Doc's Money Shot. 1-877-565-WINS. On 700 WLW, the big one.
Doc Thompson on the big one, 700 WLW. Everybody's out there saying it's all about me. I mean, right down the line, it doesn't matter. It's about me. What about me? All the while pointing to the other people saying they are too greedy. Those people they're worried about themselves, but what about me? That's what everybody's doing. Laws, the election, the occupiers, Tea Party, everybody. It's all about me. Those people are worried about themselves, but really it's about me. I wish everyone would just stop for a minute and realize it's not about them. Stop saying, what about me, and start saying, what about Doc? If more people said, what about Doc, the world would be a better place. At least my world would be. What do you do on Thanksgiving? I mean, yeah, I'm guessing you probably have turkey, right? Stuffing, mashed potatoes, all that, right? What else do you do? No football. Oh, you got some football. What else? That's pretty much it, isn't it? You sit around, talk to some relatives, maybe the relatives you don't like. You have to put up with them, right? But at some point, Thanksgiving, doesn't it get really boring? I don't know, about 5-10 years or so ago, my family and I started realizing that Thanksgiving evening is pretty boring. We do the whole family thing. We have turkey. We'll go around and say what we're thankful for. It's a pretty positive thing, but, we don't eat at 7 o'clock at night. It's usually 1, 2, 3, somewhere in there. So a couple hours later, it starts to get boring. And in years past, there wasn't a whole lot to do. So we'd start going to the movies. We'd go on to different events, stuff like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Thanksgiving isn't a religious holiday, although it has a religious foundation. It's not like saying Yom Kippur or Christmas, right? What's wrong with people working on Thanksgiving? This is another group of people saying, what about me? What about me? Instead of realizing you shouldn't look for somebody else to clean it up, find a solution yourself. You've got people out there that started an online petition specifically targeting some stores that have people working on Thanksgiving, like Target, for example. Target has been targeted. A guy out of Omaha, Anthony Hardwick, has started this online petition. As of a couple days ago, it already had over 40,000 signatures, asking Target to not open on Thanksgiving. Because what they wanted to do is they wanted to open up late Thursday evening. And you see stores doing that more and more. Earlier in the day. First it was, Black Friday, and then they would open up, 6 a.m. earlier than they normally would. Then some people start going, I'm going to open at 5 a.m. and offer great deals. Then some people start, we're going to do 4 a.m. and offer really good deals to the first 100 customers. And it just kept going like that until midnight, Thursday night. Now it's 10 o'clock at some stores. So they're outraged that they would have to work on Thanksgiving. The guy who started it said, all Americans should be able to break bread with loved ones on Thanksgiving. He said, with the midnight opening of Target, employees like myself will have to leave for work right in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner. A midnight opening? How early do you have to get there to open up the store? I would think only a couple of hours, but even if it's 6 o'clock, you don't eat until 6 o'clock? I guess some people do. But what if it's only 4 hours to open the store? They have to get ready for it. That's 8 o'clock? That's in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner? He said if Target doesn't reverse its decision and allow associates to spend Thanksgiving holidays with their family, they might suffer from the fast-growing consumer backlash. I just think there's some easier solutions. Eat dinner earlier? Look at that. I didn't even have to put a petition out there. I came up with what I always do, and that is common sense solutions. Common sense, reasonable solutions. It didn't require protests or claims or what about me. It was a common sense solution of have dinner earlier. If you don't want to go in at all, then don't work for that company. Work for somebody else. Again, another common sense solution. That is not what I'm hearing from a lot of people. One lady, Carolyn Hemingway, who works for Target, said, this is absurd. Corporations are treating their workforce like serfs and fomenting a toxic consumer culture. Pure, unadulterated greed. Not sure if she realizes that if her company makes money, she likely will continue to have a job. But if they don't, and it's a very competitive world right now, she likely will not have a job. Do you think it's wrong for stores to open on Thanksgiving? Granted, I'm admitting my bias here. I'm admitting my bias in that, number one, I get bored by Thanksgiving evening. I mean, usually by 6 o'clock, I'm like, all right, we've got to do something. I'm going stir crazy here. I'm also admitting my bias because there's members of my family that I really don't want to talk to, so I've had my fill by 6 o'clock. And further, I have worked most of my career in radio. And I have worked many, many holidays, including many Thanksgivings, Christmases, Easters, all kinds of events like this. And I recognize there are some jobs that you can't just put on hold. Now, radio is not important per se, but we do broadcast 24 hours a day. But there are really important jobs you can't put on hold. Doctors and nurses and firefighters and police officers, they work. What's wrong with it? It's not even, like I said, a religious holiday. Let's get to Lee in Dillsboro, Indiana. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And I would like to say that our traditions have been, we have an early dinner.
About what time do you eat? About 1 o'clock?
Yeah, 1, 2 o'clock
All right.
At the latest. But our family traditions did not include going shopping on Thanksgiving, or I do not go out on Black Friday either. I did that one time, and I had it. That was it. But our tradition, we eat early, and then we have the football, of course. And then after that's over, we can pull out some of the Advent preparations because Sunday will be the first, and we'll set that up and get that ready. We watched Christmas Story when we can get the TV.
Oh, I love when they run that 24 hours.
Well, we'd rather watch it on our own. You know,
so you can start it at the right point, right? Yeah.
But even though it's not a religious holiday, it's a time to be thankful. And we are a smaller family. There won't be a huge crowd, but there'll be the immediate family, and we like. Being so far, we all like being together and the grandchildren.
Come on, there's got to be one of them. You're like, I've had enough of you today.
Not really.
Come on, Lee.
Then they go home early.
Oh, well, that's why then. You send them home.
They don't stay overnight, and they can go home and
you ever string popcorn? You ever string popcorn or cranberry? You sit around and do that?
We did that when the children were smaller, but Grandma puts up a small tree. We don't put the tree up at Thanksgiving either. I don't.
So do you have a problem with the stores opening, though?
Yes,
really?
I really do. Even before this, I felt like when there were the only stores that really needed to be open on Thanksgiving, I felt were perhaps the drug stores maybe for a few hours.
How about grocery stores? Sometimes you forget that Cool Whip. You got to run on down there.
For a few hours in the morning. But then, they don't really need to be open any later. I mean, if you forgot, and I just can't believe, I don't know,
Lee,
no matter what hours you work, their stores are open that you can get your grocery shopping done before Thanksgiving morning.
I remember, I must have been about 7 or 8 years, maybe 9 at the oldest, and I went on Thanksgiving morning, the holiday where we eat, Thanksgiving morning to the convenience store with my father or older siblings or somebody to pick up something that my mom had forgotten. It was Cool Whip or something like that. Actually, it was sherbet. She was making some sort of punch for everybody. That's what it was. It was picking up sherbet, and I open up the freezer at the little convenience store, and I reached down to get the sherbet. My dad was up, standing up front or whatever. Yeah. And as I looked down right in front of me, there was this metal bar, the metal shelf that was all frozen and frosty, and it looked so tasty, Lee. And I thought, wow, it would be really cool if right now, and this was a split-second decision, if I put my tongue on that metal bar. And I did. And you know what happened, Lee?
You got stuck.
Yes, my tongue got stuck to it. And I panicked, being very young, nobody around, and guess what? I ripped it off.
Yeah.
And I damaged my tongue and my ability to taste Thanksgiving dinner. Or at least parts of it anyways. And then, of course, they show that scene as part of Christmas Story.
Yeah.
And every Thanksgiving they see it, I remember that. So let that be a warning.
Yeah. Do you get razzed by the family?
That's one of the things I don't think. I've done so many things that are more appropriate for razzing. Lee, I've got a laundry list that they never really get to that one. That one's way down on the list of my stupid activities, things that I've done in my life. But I appreciate the call, Lee. We'll get some more coming up. Is it wrong for the stores to be open on Thanksgiving? Take them next. 700 WLW. Fox 19 Storm Tracker forecast for meteorologist Frank Marzullo. It's pretty much what you see is what you get. You got the gloomy conditions and rain throughout the afternoon, high 53. Clouds decrease tonight, though, overnight low 30. Finally some sunshine tomorrow, but it's only going to be a high of about 45. 51 now at 700 WLW. And, of course, it's always warm in your hearts when I'm discussing Thanksgiving and the holidays, right? Rich sent me an email with regard to the people who are upset they have to work on Thanksgiving. He said, Doc, it's called having a Thanksgiving lunch. It's market-driven, not employee-driven. Apparently, there are many who think it should be employee-driven. Mike Delhi, you're on 700 WLW.
Yeah, just with the guy with the telling people not to work at Target, it's almost as ridiculous as trying to get the holiday changed to 2 days because, I can't spend a holiday with my in-laws and my family because I only have 2 Thanksgiving dinners, and that would add to my obesity.
Oh, you're right. By promoting Thanksgiving and having it off and people eating with their families, you're promoting obesity, people overeating, because everyone overeats on Thanksgiving, right?
All right, so we need to have a Thursday and Friday,
What about, you're right, what about the people that have so many obligations they need 2 days? Shouldn't we then have Thursday and Friday off and change it to Black Saturday?
All right, then other people can work on one day and not the other.
Interesting thought, Mike. I appreciate it. By the way, I don't know if you saw how early some of the stores are opening. The outlets up on 71 by Washington Courthouse, the way I understand it, they're opening 10 p.m. on Thanksgiving now. So we've now crested the midnight. That was kind of the holding pattern for a couple of years. It was about midnight. Some people would venture on the other side into Thanksgiving, but now it's becoming more standard. You've actually got the 10 p.m. I think you'll probably get to a 6 p.m., and I think that's reasonable. If I was a store and I really thought some people would come out, it would have to be a big store, one that would, drive people out. I would consider 6 or 8 o'clock. As I said, Thanksgiving quite often is pretty boring in the evening. Jim Milford, you're on 700 WLW.
Yeah, hey, Doc. How you doing?
How you doing, sir?
The fix for this problem on the Thanksgiving opening is a system that the protesters probably are strongly against. It's called the free market. And the way that works is if people don't think they should be open, you don't go. And after a while, the merchants say, hey, maybe that wasn't such a good idea.
This is, wow, Jim, this is really interesting. This is revolutionary.
It's a foreign concept to a lot of the people who want to evoke change, but it's been working pretty well when people work it. Personally, my protest, I'm not going to the stores on Thanksgiving. I'm going to stay home and eat dinner with my family. What a rebel, huh?
Whoa, this is incredible, Jim. I appreciate your ideas. I'm curious about them, and I would like to hear more. Let me make sure I understand it. So you really don't need the petition trying to put pressure on the store to actually close. You could do it by not spending dollars at places like that. Obviously, we didn't get to them opening at 10 p.m. or midnight or whatever on Thanksgiving night, overnight. It has to be that some people are willing to go in there and spend their dollars. So people do want to go there. This is incredible. If you would like to expand on that, or you have other thoughts about people working on Thanksgiving, 513-749-7800, the big one, or pound 700 on AT&T. What else can you do on Thanksgiving? Are there any other activities your family takes part in? No, getting drunk and throwing knives at each other, I'm not talking about that, because we get those stories every year, too. Holidays are a lot of tension-filled times for a lot of family members. And you see somebody throws a can of cranberry sauce at somebody else, hits them in the head, the police show up. We always get those stories. What other things? You out and about, you go hunting. I know people who go hunting sometimes, different parts of the country. You go on vacation. I know people who travel for the holiday. They're like, you know what, I'm just going to go someplace warm and do a non-traditional Thanksgiving. We'll get your thoughts next on 700 WLW. The doctor's on 700 WLW. Got an email from Dan, doc at 700WLW.com. He said, corporate greed, Doc, that's all it is. Corporate greed, meaning working on Thanksgiving. No respect for employees, Dan says. I wonder how many Target and Walmart CEOs work on Thanksgiving. They're not working usually, are they? It's just those low-end employees. Let me see, Dan, if I can... once again, use common sense here. That's what I try to bring to the table. Let me see. The CEOs are not working on Thanksgiving. Assuming that's the truth. They may be working from home doing some stuff, but let's assume for a minute they're not. And some of the other employees are. Let me see. You could work in a job that would not require you to work on Thanksgiving. There's one. You could work at a different place that doesn't require you to work on Thanksgiving. Second option. If those CEOs are not working, the other people are, you could become a CEO. Just some common sense solutions, though, for you, Dan, and for the other people who are upset by it. Just trying to help you out. I don't want you racking your head all day saying, what could they do? This is not right. There are some solutions, and I would hope that if you are young and you're considering career options, you're in junior high, high school, college, and you're saying, what do I want to do with my life? I would hope you would consider all things before you choose a career. If you want to be a cop, that's great. I applaud you. But recognize there are other things that go with becoming a police officer, like putting your life on the line at times. If you're not willing to do that, you probably shouldn't be a police officer. Or sometimes police officers and firefighters are called to work on holidays or shifts you don't like. They can't take a break. You need to consider those things. So if you're somebody that says, I definitely don't want to, than work on a holiday, then pick something that probably is not going to have to work on a holiday. Rich on a cell phone, you're on 700 WLW.
Hey, Doc, good show. Hey,
Thank you.
You're talking about Thanksgiving, things to go. I bartend at Silverton Cafe, and we open every Thanksgiving night at 8 o'clock. And we usually get a pretty good crowd down there because you get a lot of the single younger people that have done the family scene. And like you said, there's not much doing on the nighttime.
You know,
so
I
come down and hopefully we get a bowl game or something on, or some footballs on down there.
Where is that you work?
Silverton Cafe. We're probably the only bar on Montgomery Road that's open Thanksgiving night.
Yeah, I can understand it. I'll bet it's probably a pretty good night to work for you.
Yeah, it's not like the night before. Obviously, it's packed. But I mean, like this year, we're going to do a karaoke contest. We usually have karaoke, but we're doing a contest this year that'll start at 10. And I mean, there's a lot of people that come down there. And I like any bar, you get the young girls that come down there. The guys follow up.
That's all it is, right?
Yeah, and they got the turkey bowl up the street that usually starts festivities off early, and then everybody goes home, eats, and a lot of times they get what we call the power nap in, and they come down to Silverton Cafe. Like I said, I think we're the only one on Montgomery Road that's open.
That's a lot of fun. It can be a good time. You're in there, and you're all kind of in it together. You're saying we're people who really don't have, maybe you're out of town from, where your family is or something. You don't have anywhere else to spend it, or you're just bored with your family and you want to get out. You're kind of all in it together. It's kind of a jovial atmosphere if you're doing something or even working on a holiday. I mean, I like to be with the family, but I never hated working on holidays so much. I've had coworkers at times that either on Thanksgiving or other holidays when we worked would bring in food. I get a coworker that on New Year's Day, for any of us that work New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, he makes big pots of chili for everybody. Just something he does. It's his tradition. Nobody's ever said anything to him. Nobody gives him money. He just brings in a bunch of chili pots, cooks them all day. So if you're working New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, you got a bunch of chili. I had a boss one time when I worked, it was in Akron. I come in on, I think it was Christmas I had to work. I came in Christmas, I had to work both Christmas Eve in the evening and then Christmas Day. Let's say 6 o'clock to midnight, something like that. And I come in Christmas Eve, and there's a note in our control studio that said, for those of you that have to work Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, I left some stuff for you in the kitchen, blah, blah, blah. And I go in, and there's these big trays in the refrigerator, big tray of vegetables with dip, big cold cut tray with a bunch of different types of bread, big cookie tray and stuff like that. And it's just like, enjoy, I appreciate it. And, we were getting paid and stuff, but I understand you're away. That was kind of nice to do. I never really minded it. It's nice to be with your family, but, sometimes you got to do those things. Matt Dayton, you're on 700 WLW.
Yeah, I was just wondering if corporate greed is working on the holidays. I feel sorry for those doctors, nurses, and police officers, and firefighters, and all those other people who knew they was going to work on holidays when they got their job. Just like Walmart and Target workers. You work on holidays.
Yeah, retail, I mean, you do those things because the rest of us have it off on holidays and, and we have to go there, or we're off in the evening, and so that's when we shop, right?
Right, and most of those doctors are 1%, but they're working the holidays, but if that's corporate greed, I can't help them.
Hey, Matt, have you seen the people occupying Dayton? Have you ever driven by there?
Yeah, it's usually one or two people, and they have a "Don't Tread on Me" flag as their representative.
I would say that's inappropriate. It just doesn't apply because what they're doing is treading on other people. But here's, I appreciate you letting me know, though, they have that. I have some pictures on my blog. I think they're up now. If not, they'll be up in the next couple of minutes or so of some of the Occupy Dayton people. I had Ed Cobb on earlier today, one of the occupiers. You can, of course, hear that anytime just by listening to podcast of the first hour of my show today. He was on about 9:30. But somebody drove by and took a bunch of pictures, so you get to put a face with a voice and stuff. You can look at it on my blog, 700WLW.com. So we're talking about jobs. You hear this idea that green energy is the way of the future, that green energy will create jobs. You think that's true? Or is that just a myth? I'm skeptical, but we're going to talk about it next. I'll have a guest. We'll lay the entire thing out, and we'll get some more of your calls. Coming up on the big one, 700 WLW. Doc Thompson at 700 WLW. I just noticed Mo Egger filling in for Mark with the C Amazon tonight at 9:06. I love it when Mo fills in. Oh, Mo always brings it, man. Mo's the bomb. Check him out tonight at 9:06, 700 WLW. I get a couple of interesting emails that I really have to share because we may have missed something about the whole Thanksgiving thing. Well, people working on it and people upset and filing petitions. Dave sent me an email and he said, Doc, the bottom line is be happy you have a job in this economy. Go to work on Thanksgiving and stop your bitching. Now, he has an interesting point, but let's take it a little broader. What is Thanksgiving about? I know the history, you know the history, but it is giving thanks. It is a day to appreciate. How interesting and ironic that people are complaining on Thanksgiving that they have to work. Instead of finding the thing to be thankful for, they're finding the thing to complain about. We need Thanksgiving more than ever. Now, it doesn't have to be a religious thing for you. It is for me. But to just be thankful and appreciative, look around at the wonder that is around you always. And all of the blessings you have, regardless of how bad your life is. And I know some of you have very troubling times right now. There are things to be thankful for. So let's focus on those. It's Thanksgiving. Give thanks that you have a job, that you can be called into work on Thanksgiving. You can find another day to get together with your family. It's nice to be there. If you don't have to work on Thanksgiving, but you have some other troubles, be thankful that you have the day off. We're looking at it the entire wrong way. The occupiers, people out and about protesting, everyone upset. Let's be a little more thankful. John Wolstetter, how are you?
Fine.
Can you believe these great words of wisdom, the wisdom that I dispense every day, John? It's amazing, isn't it?
It is.
So we're talking about jobs. Tell me about green energy. Is that really a job creator, or is that just fantasy?
On the fair evidence of it, it does not seem to be creating very much in the way of shovel-ready jobs or anything else. And the reason is that the economics and the energy delivered per unit are simply not there. You have electric cars that cost so much that basically it's only the rich can afford them. You have wind turbines and these kinds of things that are defacing our landscape, and thousands of birds each year crash into the wind power, the wind farms. You have solar farms. If you want to have the power of one nuclear power plant, you have to build something like 100 square miles of panels. I mean, it's ridiculous. They're not quite ready for prime time, and our fuels for the next generation are going to be the fuels basically that we're using now, and where we have the biggest opportunity is to get more of fossil fuels, oil and natural gas, mostly natural gas, but shale oil as well, in the United States, in Canada, and from Brazilian offshore, which will give us more reliable supplies than taking oil from the Middle East or Venezuela. I
love the idea of solar. I love the idea that we could get energy, even more so than wind, because wind you're still putting up. There's still a turbines. You're turning some. But I love the idea of solar, that you just take the energy, right from the sun that shines down on us every day. Of course, I also like the idea of a magic wand creating energy jobs too. The bottom line is the technology has to be there for solar, right? I mean, that's the key.
Well, it has to, and there's some people who are living in solar homes happily in places that get lots of sunshine where you can store up a lot of heat. And there is not, however, yet a credible case that green energy can take over the cleaner forms of energy. And so we need to exploit, at least for the next generation, the hydrocarbon energy sources we have. And if we do, we can stop importing from bad people who take the money, invested in terrorism, invested in hatred of the United States and the West, and can threaten from time to time to cut off supply. We don't have to worry about those things if we're importing oil from the Canadian tar sands, and now we've just slapped them in the face. There's never been a pipeline that hasn't been completed once started between Canada and the United States. And this is now you have a very pro-American Canadian Prime Minister who is looking to sell it to Asia instead. It's absolutely incredible.
And it's really sad that pipeline it comes down to politics. They've stopped it because the president feels he will not get reelected because that pipeline will transport oil, and many of his supporters do not want that. My speculation is after the election, that thing will be back up and running, on track.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I think he is an ideologue on this, and I think that he didn't want to kill the project now because he's facing election and about 20,000 jobs. The unions want the pipeline. They're on the right side of this one.
Well, but you got to remember, too, the president, though, he has backed giving money to Brazil so they could drill, and he is one of the cheap recipients of monies for campaign contributions from BP.
Well, he, unfortunately, but I think this is where his heart is. This is a case, sure, he's got political reasons, but the political side of his calculation, the political side of it is that he does not want to anger the unions, and so he defers it instead of ending it entirely.
Oh, I see, because potential job creation with the unions if it were rolling through.
That's right.
I see, so he's got that angle, too. All right. Well, I appreciate you explaining that to me. It's John Wohlstetter. Thank you so much, sir.
Well, thank you, and I'll have more on these subjects on Letter from the Capitol, my blog, and thanks to your audience for tuning in.
Absolutely, and I'll put a link to it on my blog at 700WLW.com. Love the idea of solar. In fact, I've been looking to get solar panels on my house. Solar panels are just not cheap, so I have to see the cost analysis. I have to see when will I make my money back. If it takes 20 years to make my money back for the solar panels, well, about that time, I'm going to need to replace them. I need to get something on my roof, solar panels, that will pay for themselves in a couple of years, and then I can start saving money or making money, essentially. That's what I'm looking for. It's Doc Thompson on the big one, 700 WLW. Coming up just after 11:06, Joseph Henchman's going to join me. There's a Supreme Court hearing. They've agreed to hear not just the Obamacare challenges, but some other challenges as well, including an Indiana tax. A tax in Indiana that could have you, depending upon how this falls, paying more or less in taxes. We'll do it at 11:06 on the big one, 700 WLW. Doc Thompson on the big one, 700 WLW. I've taken it upon myself to let you know when there are jobs out there or resources so you can start a business. Jeannie Schmidt is interested in inviting residents to the Ohio 2nd Congressional District to her Startup Summit, launching and growing a business. If you're interested in launching or growing your business, she's going to have this summit. There's going to be a lot of information there. It's free. It's for anybody interested in starting a business. It's going to be Saturday, 8:30 till 1 at the Union Township Civic Center, Claremont County. You have to pre-register, and you need to email your name, address, cell phone number, all that stuff. I'll put a link to this information on my blog at 700WLW.com so you can find it. But it is Saturday, and this will be a great resource. Possibly some good networking opportunities, too. Doc Thompson, 700 WLW, coming up at 11:06. Will you pay more or less taxes because of a Supreme Court hearing? Starting in Indiana, but it could affect all of us. We'll get to it next on the home of the best Bengals coverage, 700 WLW.